So sitting in my car in the garage. Engine off, just staring at the concrete wall. Mark was upstairs. But the whack vents in the garage are weird and carry sound perfectly, so I could hear him on the phone. I couldn't catch every single word, but I knew that voice. It's that low, quiet thing he does when he's trying to be persuasive, and he was laughing. Not a normal laugh, but the one he uses when he's flirting. The house was just really quiet. I stayed there for like 10 minutes. I listened to him tell some woman that he'd handle everything and that she didn't need to worry about the logistics. Anyway, I got out of the car, went inside, and started making a list in the kitchen. I didn't scream or go upstairs and break things. I sat at the island and wrote down every single joint asset we had. The next few weeks were, I don't know, kind of boring, but that was the point. I had to make sure Mark thought everything was normal, because if he suspected, I knew he'd move the money. I knew he would. He's a CFO. Moving money is literally his job. Tuesday morning, I was at the grocery store. I actually got into this ridiculous standoff with another woman over the last working shopping cart because all the others had locked wheel seals. We were both just gripping the handle, staring each other down. And while I'm standing there in the parking lot, I'm mentally calculating the transfer fees for moving our shared savings into a protected account. I won the cart, by the way. I got my organic spinach and went home. When I walked in, Mark was there looking all concerned. You look exhausted, Liz, he said. Just a long day, I told him. I went straight to the laundry room. I'd forgotten to move the school uniforms to the dryer 2 days ago, and they smelled like mildew. I spent a while stripping the clothes out of the washer and starting a second cycle with extra vinegar to get the smell out. Honestly, for a second, I almost just left them there and cried, but I didn't. While that was running, I was texting my lawyer, Sarah, and sending her PDFs of our joint tax returns from the last 5 years. My phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Mark had double-booked himself. He had a client dinner at 7 p.m. and a gym session at 7 p.m. I stared at the screen. He wasn't even trying to be good at the lying anymore. It was just sloppy. I didn't say anything. I accepted both invites, so he'd think I wasn't paying attention. Then there was the dog food. Our golden doodle has this really specific allergy, so I have to buy the expensive grain-free stuff at the pet store. It's like $80 a bag. I was standing in the aisle, lifting the bag into the cart, and I started thinking about the otter renewal for a streaming service we haven't used in a year. Like, why are we still paying for a premium sports package? It's a small thing, but it really bothered me. He's wasting money on stuff he doesn't use, while he's funding a second life. On Thursday afternoon, I was in the home office logged into the 401k. The market dipped again, so I spent 3 hours rebalancing the portfolio. I was moving things around, making sure everything was where it needed to be for a clean split. Mark walked in and put his hand on my shoulder. Still messing with the 401k? He asked. Just rebalancing, I said. The market is a mess. God, you're such a nerd, he said. I nodded and kept clicking. I wasn't being a nerd. I was documenting exactly what he contributed versus what I did before he figured out how to hide his bonuses. I think I just went numb. I started treating the whole thing like a project at work. Every interaction was basically just a data point. Every I love you was a distraction. I wasn't crying in the shower or calling my sister. I didn't really have time for that. I had spreadsheets. I started noticing things. Little things. He started leaving his phone face down on the nightstand. He'd take work calls in the driveway. I watched. I didn't ask. I just made a note in a password-protected doc. One night we were on the couch, and he was telling me about some new project at the firm. He was talking, and I was just looking at him, wondering how someone can be so confident while being so obvious. Are you even listening, Lisa? He asked. Yeah, I said, the project in Chicago. Go on, he smiled. He thought he'd won. He thought I was just the boring part of his life that kept the house running and the uniforms smelling fresh. He had no idea I'd already met with a forensic accountant. Twice. The turning point was on a Friday. I had a bank appointment, not a joint one just for me. I told Mark I was going to the dentist, so I left the house at 10 a.m. I went into the branch and asked to speak with the manager. I'd had a feeling about our secondary savings account. The one for the kids' college funds were supposed to be adding a set amount every month. I'd been doing my part and tracking the transfers. The manager, Greg, is a guy I've known for years. He looked at the screen and then looked at me. He looked really uncomfortable. Lisa, he said. There's something you should see. He turned the monitor around. I looked at the transaction history. There were monthly withdrawals. Not small ones either. Large five-figure sums moving out every 3 weeks for the last 6 months. The transfers were going to some private wealth management account in a different state. I looked at the total. It wasn't just a few thousand. It was nearly half of the kids' tuition. I didn't really react. I think I was just in shock. I leaned in closer to the screen. Can you print the full ledger for the last year? I asked. Of course, Greg said. Do you want me to call Mark? I took the papers, folded them into my purse, and walked out. I drove to the pet store and bought another bag of the grain-free dog food. When I got home, I saw that Mark had left a mess of coffee grounds on the counter. I grabbed a sponge and wiped it up. I stuffed the ledger into my bag, next to some dog food receipts, and went into the kitchen. Mark was just leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone. He didn't even look up. Hey, he said. Hey, I said. I walked past him to the sink and started scrubbing some coffee grounds he'd left behind. I didn't really look at him. I just focused on the stains on the counters. God, why is it so hard to get dried coffee off of foam marble? I've tried 3 different sponges and it still looks smeared. He told me he had a dinner thing tonight and would probably be late, so I shouldn't wait up. I just said okay and told him I had a lot of laundry to catch up on. I spent about an hour in the laundry room after that. I was just staring at the washer, waiting for the uniforms to finish their second cycle. I'd put vinegar in there to get rid of a mildew smeller. Maybe it was baking soda? No, it was definitely vinegar. I stood there for a while listening to the machine thump. While it was running, I pulled out my laptop and opened our shared calendar. Mark had added another client strategy session for next Tuesday. The thing was, he'd already put tennis with Greg in that same time slot. I didn't say anything. I just clicked the tennis event and changed the location to unknown. I wanted to see if he'd even notice. I just wanted to see how sloppy he was getting. Then I saw a charge on the joint card for some premium sports streaming package. We haven't watched a single game in a year. It's $49 a month. It seems like a small thing. But when you're looking at a ledger that shows 5-figure withdrawals from the kids' college funds, $49 feels like a slap in the face. I opened a new spreadsheet and titled it Legal. I didn't use the word divorce. I didn't want to look at it. I just started listing every asset, every account, and all the weird withdrawals. That evening, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't Mark, it was Nicholas R. Lowe. Nicholas is one of Mark's oldest friends from business school. Hez a partner at a different firm, and has always been the type of guy who thinks Hez the smartest person in the room. He was holding a bottle of expensive Cabernet and wearing a suit that probably cost more than my first car. Lisa, darling, he said, stepping inside before I even invited him. I was in the neighborhood and thought he'd drop this off for you and Mark. Hi, Nicholas. Mark's not home yet. I know, the man's a machine, Nicholas said. He walked into the living room and started looking around, almost like he was inspecting the place. You look tired, Lisa. Is everything okay? Mark mentioned things have been a little tense lately. I looked at him. He was smiling, but it was that fake-ass smile people use when they're pretending to care. Tense? I asked. I'm not sure what he means by that. Oh, you know, Mark, Nicholas said, leaning against the wall. The pressure of the CFO role, the expectations. Sometimes men, they need a way to decompress. Not in a bad way, obviously. Just a way to let off steam. I just hope you're taking this the right way. You know how Mark gets under pressure? I stood there for a minute. I didn't blink. Taking it the right way. Yes, Nicholas said. I mean, you've always been the one who keeps everything running here. It would be a tragedy if a little temporary turbulence ruined such a stable setup. For the kids' sake, of course. Mark really values you, Lisa. Even if he's not the best at showing it. He was totally trying to prep me. Mark had sent him over to plant the seed. That whatever I found was just decompressing, and that I should just be the gracious wife and look the other way. I appreciate the concern, Nicholas, I said. But I'm doing fine. I'm actually just focused on the kids' school stuff. The uniforms were mildewy, so I've been spending a lot of time in the laundry room. Nicholas paused. He looked at me then, at the laundry room door. Right, of course, the uniforms. Do you want the wine in the fridge? Or should I just leave it on the counter? I asked. Just leave it, he said. He seemed confused. I think he expected me to cry or ask what Mark had said. Or maybe scream at him. I didn't do any of that. I just treated him like a delivery driver. After he left, I went back to my laptop and called Sarah, my lawyer. I met with the forensic accountant, Sarah told me. He found the trail. The private wealth account in Delaware? It's not just for a mistress. Lisa, Mark has been using it to buy real estate, small condos. He's building a portfolio outside of the marriage. How much? I asked. A lot, Sarah said. But here's the thing. He's been using joint funds for the down payments. He's been forging your signature on the transfer authorizations. He's not just cheating. He's committing fraud. I didn't even feel sad. I just wanted to throw the laptop through the window. But I knew if I did, I'd be the crazy one. I want him ruined, I said. Not just a 50-50 split, I want him to have nothing. That's a high bar, Sarah said. But with the forged signatures, we have a lot of leverage. If we go to court, he's looking at more than just a divorce. He's looking at professional ruin. Good, I said. Keep digging. It'll get you the rest of the documents. The next few days were just a blur of boring stuff. I went to the grocery store and actually got into a fight with a woman over a shopping cart, the one I had a squeaky wheel that made it veer to the left. It was driving me insane, just this high-pitched metal screech every time I turned while we were arguing. I was texting Sarah a list of the hidden accounts I'd found in Mark's old tax files. I actually ended up winning the cart, which honestly felt like the only victory I'd had in 3 years. Tuesday afternoon, I spent some time rebalancing the 401k. The market had dipped again, and I was moving assets into more conservative funds to make sure my portion was locked in before the filing. I was clicking through the menus with a blank face while Mark sat across the room on his iPad. "You're still on that 401k?" he asked. "Just rebalancing," I said. "I don't want us to lose more in this dip." "You're so obsessive about this stuff," he said, and he laughed. It was that same laugh I'd heard through the vents in the garage. "I just like things to be orderly," I told him. I started doing things that were intentionally mundane just to keep him off balance. I complained about the auto-renewal for the sports package. I spent 20 minutes arguing with him about why we were paying for it. "It's $14, Lisa. Just let it go," he snapped. "It's the principal, Mark, it's a waste," I said. He thought I was just nagging him about $50. He didn't know I was using the argument to see if he'd slip up and mention the Delaware account or the condos. He didn't. He just got annoyed and walked out of the room. On Friday, I had a meeting with the forensic accountant, a guy named Marcus. We met in a sterile office park next to a dry cleaner. I spent the whole ride over thinking about how the dry cleaner's sign had a flickering E that kept blinking on and off. It was incredibly distracting. "He's been clever," Marcus said, sliding a folder across the desk. "But he's not a professional money launderer. He's a CFO. He follows patterns. He's been moving money on the 15th of every month. He thinks he's hiding it in the miscellaneous column of the corporate expenses for some of his side ventures." I looked at the spreadsheets. The numbers were cold. Everything he did was right there in black and white. "Can we freeze the accounts?" I asked. "If we file the injunction today." "Yes," Marcus said. "But you have to be ready. Once the freeze happens, hell no." There's no going back. "I'm ready," I said. I drove home and stopped at the pet store. I bought the $80 bag of grain-free dog food. When I carried it into the house, Mark was in the kitchen pouring himself a glass of scotch. "Rough day?" he asked. "Not really," I said, "just a lot of errands." I put the dog food in the pantry and noticed he'd left a pile of mail on the counter. There was a letter from a law firm in Delaware. He'd actually just left it sitting there, right on top of a pizza coupon. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I already knew what was inside. I walked over to him and kissed him on the cheek. He smelled like expensive cologne. "Going to go start a load of towels," I said. I went into the laundry room and closed the door. I pulled out my phone and sent one text to Sarah. I stood there in the quiet, listening to the hum of the washing machine, and I waited. Then, about 10 minutes later, I heard Mark's phone start ringing on the kitchen counter. He answered it. I could hear his voice getting louder. He wasn't using that persuasive low tone anymore. He was shouting, "What do you mean frozen? Who the hell is this?" I leaned against the dryer and stared at a stray sock on the floor. It was a navy blue one, but it didn't have a match. I wondered where the other one went. I just listened to him realize everything was gone. The shouting continued for a few minutes. Then it stopped. I heard his footsteps coming toward the laundry room. He stopped right outside the door. He didn't open it. He just stood there. I was standing by the dryer when he finally walked in. He didn't look like a CFO, he looked terrified. He was pale and sweating through his dress shirt, the fabric clinging to his chest in a way that looked uncomfortable. "What did you do?" he asked. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. I didn't look at him. I kept folding laundry. "You okay? You look like you're panicking." "The accounts are frozen, Lisa. Everything. My personal line, the business dividends, the savings. Who did you talk to?" I finally looked at him, but I didn't say much. "I have no idea. Maybe the bank messed up. You should call your manager." He started pacing the laundry room, and since it's a tiny space, he was stepping on my toes. He was breathing heavy. I'd never seen him look that scared in 20 years. "You did this," he said. "I'm doing the laundry, Cesar," I said. I used his legal name. He always went by Mark. Everyone knows him as Mark. But the forensic accountant found these shell companies. And the name on the Delaware filings wasn't Mark. It was Cesar P. Parks. I'd never even seen that name on a piece of mail in our house. He'd spent 2 decades pretending to be Mark to fit in at the corporate office. He stopped pacing and stared at me. "Where did you hear that name?" "It was on the ledger," I said. "The one Greg printed for me, along with the 5-figure withdrawals from the kids' college funds. By the way, the uniforms finally don't smell like a gym. I think the vinegar worked, still not sure if I used enough though." "No, wait, it was 2 cups. "Yeah, it was enough." He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he turned around and walked out. I heard him slam the bedroom door and the sound of things being thrown. I didn't check on him. I went back to my laptop. The next 2 weeks were a mess. I treated it like a business deal, where the goal was to leave him with nothing. I woke up, made coffee, and looked at spreadsheets. I remember being at PetSmart around this time and getting pissed at the price of dog food, $85. I stood there staring at the bag for 5 minutes, thinking my husband's a felon and I can't even afford the good dog food. It's ridiculous how they keep raising the prices on the grain-free stuff. I honestly don't know why we bother with the organic brand if the dog just wants to eat grass in the backyard anyway. Anyway, I put the bag in the cart, and while I was waiting in line, I was texting Sarah, my lawyer, about the Cesar P. Parks thing. The fact that he used a different legal name for the shell companies is huge. Sarah told me in a voice note, "It shows he meant to do it. It's not an accounting mistake. We can push for a higher settlement, or we can go straight for the fraud charges." Go for the fraud, I replied. I got home and saw that the shared Google Calendar was a disaster. Cesar Mark, whatever, had started adding emergency meetings and client calls at 3 a.m. He was trying to make it look like he was stressed from work to explain where the money went. He'd even double-booked a medical appointment and a site visit on the same Thursday. I clicked accept on both. I figured I'd let him think I was still the clueless wife handling the chores. I spent Thursday afternoon fixing the Vanguard 401k. The market dipped, so I moved everything into a low-risk money market fund. I wanted my half locked in. Cesar walked into the office smelling like scotch, no tie. "We need to talk about the accounts," he said, busy. "With the 401k, I said. "The market is tanking. Lisa, look at me." He tried to put his hand on my shoulder, but I leaned away, pretending to reach for a pen. "I can fix this. I made some bad investments. I was trying to grow our wealth. I did it for us, for the kids." "You did it under the name Cesar Parks," I said. "You didn't do it for us. You did it for a bunch of condos in Delaware that I'm putting in my legal papers." He stopped, his voice dropped. "I can make this go away. Sign a waiver, agree to a reasonable settlement, and I can unfreeze everything. We can go back to how it was. You really want the kids to know this about me?" "I'm not signing anything," I said. "Now can you move? You're blocking the light." He left the room. I went back to clicking. I was pissed, but I didn't want him to see it. I wanted him gone. Then came the discovery phase. This is where it got weird. Sarah called me on a Tuesday morning sounding confused. "Lisa, Cesar's lawyers just sent over some documents. They're claiming you've been stealing from the joint accounts for years. They've produced bank statements showing transfers from the main account to a private account in your name that we've never seen." I sat up. "What they're claiming?" "You're the one hiding money," Sarah said. They've got these ledgers and transfer receipts. They look real, Lisa. They've got your signature on them. I was shocked. I hadn't moved a dime that wasn't documented. I didn't even know those accounts existed. I was actually shaking. Send them to me, I said. Sarah emailed the PDFs. I opened them and started scrolling. The signatures looked exactly like mine. The dates lined up with times I'd been at the grocery store or at the dentist. He'd forged my signature on fake bank statements to make it look like I was the thief. He was trying to tell the court I stole the college funds. I looked at the fakes for an hour. Then I started laughing. Not because it was funny, but because he was so arrogant. He thought he could outsmart me, Sarah. I said into the phone. He used a template. Look at the dates. He put a transfer through for a Tuesday in October. But I was in Florida that whole week. Wait, was it October? No, it was November. Either way, I was in Florida, and look at the branch. He used a branch on 5th Street that's been closed for 2 years. He didn't even check if the location was still open. Are you sure? Sarah asked. I'm positive. I looked at our statements for months. I know every line. If these are fakes, he's in a lot of trouble, Sarah said. Presenting forged evidence in court is a fast track to a felony. Exactly, I said. Don't tell him we know. Let him use these at the mediation. For the next week, I acted scared. I told Cesar I was worried about the accusations. I let him think his plan was working. I spent my time doing boring stuff. I fought with the cable company for 40 minutes over a $10 service fee. It's the principle of the thing. They keep adding these infrastructure charges that don't actually improve the signal. My internet still drops every time it rains. And for what? $10 a month. I spent an entire Saturday scrubbing the grout in the guest bathroom with a toothbrush, which is a miserable way to spend a day. I complained to him about the auto-renewal for the sports package again. Why do you care about $50 when your life is over? He snapped at me one night. It's a waste of money, Cesar, I said. He looked smug. He really thought he had me. The day of the mediation arrived. We were in a sterile conference room with glass walls and gray carpets. Cesar was wearing his best suit. His lawyer looked like he cost $500 an hour just to sit there. The mediator, a woman named Diane, looked at the papers. Mr. Parks, your counsel has provided evidence that Mrs. Larson has been diverting funds. Lisa, do you have a response? Cesar looked at me and smiled. It was a small, pitying smile. She's just overwhelmed, Cesar said, his voice soft. I think she's had a breakdown. Just trying to get us through this for the kids. I didn't say anything. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. The lawyer frowned and leaned in to look. And I added, if you look at page 4, you'll see that the transfers Cesar claimed I made were sent from a laptop in his home office at 2:14 a.m. while I was asleep. The room went silent. Cesar went pale. He didn't even breathe. Also, I said, looking at him, you used a bank branch. That's been closed for 2 years. It's a sloppy mistake, Cesar. I expected more from a CFO. His lawyer slowly pushed the papers away. He didn't even look at Cesar. He just looked at the mediator. We may need a recess. No, I said. I think we're done, Sarah. Tell me about the criminal referral. Sarah didn't hesitate. The forgery and fraud are now part of the court record. We've already alerted the district attorney. This is no longer just a civil matter. Cesar finally spoke. His voice was a whisper. Lisa, please what? I asked. Please be the boring wife? Please ignore that you stole the kids' tuition and framed me for it. He tried to stand up, but he looked like he was about to faint. He sank back into the chair. I want the Delaware condos, I said. I want the full balance of the 401k. I want the house, and you're out by Friday. If you fight this, I'll make sure the dog goes for the max sentence on the fraud charges. He didn't argue. He just sat there. I stood up and packed my bag. As I was leaving, I stopped at the door. Oh, and Cesar's, he looked up. I canceled the sports package. You don't need it anymore. I just got in my car and drove to get a coffee. I didn't even look at Cesar when I walked out of that conference room. He just really needed a cold brew and like 10 minutes, where I didn't have to smell his cologne. While I was waiting for my drink, my phone started blowing up. It was Cesar. 32 missed calls and a bunch of texts. I just scrolled through them without really reading. Lisa, please talk to me. I can explain Delaware. Think about the kids. He kept saying we could fix it. I deleted the whole thread. I didn't block him because I wanted to know if he was going to do something stupid. But I muted him. I took a sip of my coffee and remembered the kids. Soccer cleats were peeling at the toes, so I added that to my grocery list. When I finally got home, Caesar was already there. He was just sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of scotch, and it was even 2 in the afternoon. Honestly, he looked like he'd aged 5 years in a few hours, Lisa. He said, "We need to sit down and actually talk." "I have to move the laundry," I told him. "The towels are just sitting in there and they're going to start smelling like mildew." He shouted that he didn't care about the towels. I didn't really react. I just walked past him into the laundry room. I spent a few minutes just staring at the washer, thinking about whether I should have used more vinegar. I probably should have. Anyway, I moved the towels and went back into the kitchen. "In listening," I said. He told me he could make a deal. He offered me the house and the 401k. But he wanted me to make sure the dad didn't move forward with the fraud charges. He kept saying he couldn't go to prison, and that his career would be over if it went public. I just told him his career was already over. I let him know that the board at his firm had already heard from Sarah, and he was on administrative leave. They were auditing everything, including that miscellaneous column, he thought. No one noticed. He just stopped talking. He just stared at me. He didn't even know. He actually thought he could negotiate this. I told him I wanted the Delaware condos, the full balance of the investment account, and the house. I told him he had to be out by Friday at 5 p.m., or I was sending the forensic accountant's full report to the day, with a note to give him the maximum sentence. "You're being ruthless," he said. "I'm just doing the math, Caesar," I told him. "Now move. I can't even get to the dishwasher." The next few days were just a blur of checklists. I was waking up at 6 a.m. making lunches, and spending half my life on the phone with Sarah and the accountant. On Wednesday, I went to the store and actually got into a fight with this guy in the parking lot over a shopping cart. He just left his right in the middle of the lane, and my cart had this bad wheel that kept jerking to the right. I ended up yelling at him to move it or I'd push it into his trunk. And the wild part is, I was literally emailing the quitclaim deeds for the Delaware places to Sarah while I was arguing with this guy. I didn't feel like I won anything. I just felt like I was cleaning a really dirty room. The house was a total disaster when I got back. Caesar had started packing, but he was doing it in the most chaotic way possible. Suitcases were open everywhere, and there were piles of clothes on the guest bed. "Can you move your stuff into the hallway?" I asked. "I need to vacuum." He asked how I could even think about vacuuming when we were ending 20 years of marriage. He was standing there holding a photo of us from Italy. "The carpet is high pile, Caesar, it holds dust," I said. "And I want that photo. Just put it down." He looked at me like I was a stranger. I guess I was. He'd spent 20 years with a woman who handled the dog food and the schedules and the 401k. And he never noticed that his whole life only worked because I treated it like a project. I went into the office and opened the shared calendar, and it was just a mess. Legal meeting and doctor appointment were all overlapping. I spent an hour just deleting every single one of his entries. Honestly, clicking that trash can icon over and over was the highlight of my week. Then I added a new event for Friday at 5:01 p.m. Changed the locks on Thursday. I had to go to the pet store. I was already annoyed because the organic dog food went up another $5. I actually ended up arguing with the cashier about my loyalty points. "I spent $3,000 on this brand in 2 years, I told her. "Why isn't the discount working?" She told me the system was down. I told her the system is never down when they're charging me. While I was waiting for her to fix it, Sarah texted me. The DA was offering a plea. Caesar would forfeit the hidden assets and sign over the Delaware portfolio for a suspended sentence and heavy probation. He'd lose his CFO license and never work in finance again. I texted back and told her to make sure the condo transfer was irrevocable. Once that was signed, I'd tell the DA he could have his suspended sentence. I bought the food and drove home. Caesar was in the kitchen looking through a box of old files. He looked pathetic, honestly. He had this look on his face, like he wanted me to comfort him. "I don't know where I'm going to go," he said. "My parents won't take me after what I did to the college funds." "There's a hotel downtown," I said. "I think they have a corporate rate." He asked if we could just talk for 10 minutes without the lawyers and busies. I told him, "I have to rebalance the 401k. The tech sector dipped this morning, You're obsessed with the money, he said. No, I'm obsessed with not being broke. Because my husband is a fraud, I told him. Now move your suitcase. You're blocking the pantry. That night I just sat in the living room with my laptop. I had the house. The kids' tuition was restored. I had the condos and the 401k. It'd basically taken every financial advantage he'd spent 20 years building. The part that actually pissed me off was that he tried to frame me for theft using a bank branch that had been closed for 2 years. Just the sloppiness of it. He really thought I wasn't paying attention. He thought I was just the wife who couldn't read a ledger. Friday morning was honestly kind of boring. I spent the time cleaning, scrubbing the baseboards, alphabetizing the spices, whatever. I even spent 20 minutes on the phone with the cable company because I saw a $3 regulatory recovery fee on the bill. I didn't even care about the $3. I just liked winning a fight with a bot. At 4, Caesar started loading his last boxes. He was wearing a suit, but it was all wrinkled. He looked small. I stood on the porch and watched him. He stopped at the trunk and looked back. I still love you, Lisa, he said. I'm sure you do, I said. He asked if I'd ever forgive him. I didn't answer. I just looked at my watch. It's 4:45, Caesar. Right, he said. Right, he drove away. I didn't wave or cry. I didn't even feel a weight lifting. It just felt like I'd finished a really long, annoying audit. As soon as he was gone, I called the locksmith. Hi, I need a full recce for a 4-bedroom house, I said. Can you be here by 5? The guy said he could. While I waited, I went into the laundry room and found a navy blue sock that had been missing for 2 weeks. I looked at it for a second, and then just threw it in the trash. I wasn't about to waste time looking for the match. The locksmith got there at 5:02 and spent an hour on the doors. Once he left, I went to the fridge and found a bottle of wine that Nicholas had brought over a few weeks ago. I poured a glass and sat at the kitchen table, the same place Caesar tried to negotiate his way out of everything, and opened my laptop. I checked the shared account one last time to make sure the autopays were in my name. I saw a gym membership charge for $29. He hadn't been to that gym since 2019. I clicked cancel subscription. I took a sip of the wine. It was a bit too dry, but whatever, the kitchen was clean. The laundry was folded. The kids were at their grandma's. I saw an email from the DAS office confirming the Delaware transfers and the plea deal. Caesar P. Parks wasn't a CFO anymore. He was just a guy with a hotel room and some boxes. I closed the laptop and finally just sat there in the quiet.